Hello, beautiful soul. In this video, I want to share the process that I implement and use to extricate myself from toxic relational dynamics, toxic workplaces, any dynamic where there are people with narcissistic traits, emotionally immature people, people that cause chaos, conflict, drama, competition. These things are all toxic. So the first thing is actually recognizing that a situation is toxic. And we recognize that because of how we're constantly feeling. So if we're feeling upset, if we're feeling like we want to cry, if we're being triggered, if things are just not harmonious, if there's competition, conflict, drama, chaos, things don't flow, things are not cooperative, that's like a really big sign that it's toxic. And typically, we're not going to be able to change other people. People need to want to change themselves. And so for me, I no longer try and change people. I might highlight someone's behavior. I might give someone an opportunity to change their behavior. But if it's showing up again and again, that's a choice. That's a choice not to do the healing work. That's a choice not to take accountability and responsibility. And at that point, we need to look at our own choices and what we're choosing to tolerate. And for me, I just have no time for that anymore. I have no interest in that. I'm not here to fix anyone. I recognize that I cannot fix another person. Everyone needs to take accountability and responsibility for themselves. So if someone's not actively doing the work to heal for their own reasons because they want to, then they're not going to heal. No one's going to be able to heal themselves just because we want them to. So they might attempt to show up to psychology appointments or therapy appointments or do the spiritual healing work. But the reasoning for doing that is extrinsic. It's not an intrinsic reason for themselves to improve their own life, to improve their own reality. And if they were thinking about this, if these toxic people were actually thinking about things logically, they would realize that if they want their reality to change, if they want to improve things, if they want a better life, a more fulfilling life, if they want more opportunities for themselves, if they want more harmony in their lives, they're going to have to do the work. It's unable to be faked. They can try, they can wear a mask, and that gets them to a certain point, but nothing will change until people take accountability and responsibility for themselves and do the actual work. And through doing that work, that self-awareness comes, other things start to improve. They're able to catch their behaviors that might make situations toxic, and things improve from there. They're able to recognize these characteristics in other people. They're able to choose better people, better situations, better dynamics for themselves. So they would realize this, but typically they don't, because they're not taking accountability, because their egos won't allow for that to happen. They've got pride, they've got ego, they're deeply insecure, and so it's just too hard to be vulnerable. So from there, it's about making a plan to exit the situation, and that means taking accountability and responsibility for how we feel, how we behave, what we're saying, what we're doing, all of those things as well. It's important throughout this whole process to get our own emotions in check. Do the work on ourselves. Be unemotional. Don't be triggered easily. Don't be manipulated easily. The first thing I do is plan things well in advance. So I'm planning the exit strategy in advance. So behaving as normal. This might be a good time to get on top of some of that therapy needed to get emotions in check, to regulate our own emotions, those sorts of things. Because when we're undertaking a big change, when we're looking at exiting a situation where people might not be happy with this, we need to be in control of our own emotions. We need to be regulated. We need to be sure of what we're doing. So planning in advance means not telling anyone that knows the other people about the plan, not sharing any plans. So it does actually require a lack of transparency. And I'm a very open, honest, transparent person. But if I'm in a seriously toxic dynamic where my emotional safety is at risk, I've been in other situations where my physical safety was at risk as well. But this isn't that. We're not talking about that. When we are in self-preservation mode, step one is to get to a safe place. And that means not being fully transparent. That means keeping things to ourselves for our own safety. It's not to be manipulative. It's not to control the situation. It's simply to protect ourselves and to protect our exit strategy. So moving in silence, finding information that's needed in silence as well, deleting browsing history, like making sure we can't be tracked if we're going anywhere to seek external information. Like these things are really important. I haven't been in situations where I was tracked to that degree that I'm aware of. So, if that's something that applies, if it's a particularly coercive situation, like implementing strategies to avoid detection is really important. So for me, that was also identifying like who is safe and who is not safe. So when I had decided to leave a toxic relationship with someone I'd been in a relationship with 7 years, we lived together, our friend group were all the same, like we had joined friends, and unfortunately they all took his side. They were disloyal to me. And so part of the planning in advance phase means making sure that anything important is in a safe place. For me, that was some family members who I ended up staying with. That was my escape plan. They collected me, they looked after me. They were completely separate to my partner, and they were there to look after me and my emotional well-being, and they did that, and I felt safe there. So I made sure anything important was already there. We had been living overseas and just returned, so a lot of my things were already there. So I didn't have anything important at the house that we lived in together. It was just clothes and things that I needed for day-to-day living. So that was already established. I'd already planned where I was going to go. When he was out, I started packing things, made my escape strategy, had someone come and collect me, a family member. So there was going to be someone there. He did come home at the end of this, like while I was still gathering my things together, and laid all the tactics out, all the you're never going to find anyone better, like that type of thing to manipulate me to stay. But I didn't. I went anyway. I wrote a list of how he made me feel, like all the things that actually showed me that it was toxic, showed me that I was emotionally unsafe, showed me that we weren't growing together, that this was just chipping away at my self-worth, at who I was as a person, and kept that list handy for moments of weakness whenever I felt low. So we communicated on text to tie up any loose ends, to close anything off. When I went to do things in person, close out anything that we needed to close out together, square anything up that needed to be squared up, that was all done in front of other people. And when having those interactions, when having those conversations, we weren't talking about our lives, we weren't talking about what we were doing, we were just keeping it really factual, keeping to the task at hand, getting it done as efficiently as possible, and then leaving the situation. And other people were around, so I felt more comfortable with witnesses, if you want to call them that. Once that was done, I went completely no contact. Unfortunately, all of our mutual friends also turned on me. So I was the bad guy. I was the scapegoat in the situation. Anyone disloyal to me, I ended up going no contact with them as well. And I used that as an opportunity, this no contact phase, to build myself back up, do things alone, heal from codependency, start to develop my confidence, my self-worth, started pouring into myself. I started eating healthy, going to the gym. I started doing things that I thought would challenge me as a person. I would go to the movies by myself. I would go hiking by myself. I would do short local trips by myself. From there, I built up to overseas travel. So I would meet friends overseas, have a portion of the holiday together, and then do an add-on that was completely on my own to start practicing traveling overseas alone. Then that went to completely solo travel. It just like built up from there. I started focusing on work. What did I want for myself? Trying new things, learning who I was as a person. And from doing this, I was starting to meet new people, new friends. So I was evolving, I was elevating to another level of emotional maturity. And so I was meeting other friends who were on that same level. So building up, leveling up myself, evolving myself. And as a result, the people that were coming into my life were also at that same level of evolution. With workplaces, I typically do the same thing, get all my ducks in a row, make sure that there's nothing I'm going to need in terms of work history or projects that I've done that I'm going to want to add to my CV in the future. Like, just have all of the data and information that I need about my work history, about things that are important to me moving forward, already with me. And so the last thing that actually happens is the leaving part. So with work, there were obligations that I needed to close off. I was managing a project that was worth tens of millions of dollars, and so I needed to close that off first. So in that time, I kept showing up, kept delivering what I needed to deliver, showed up in the way I was expected to show up. I didn't cause any drama, didn't add to drama, even though there were smear campaigns and whatever other toxic gossip was going on. Like, I just didn't pay any attention to it. I kept it really factual. I didn't get drawn into any emotional reactions or anything like that. Just kept it factual, kept it to my work. If something was happening in front of me, I addressed that with facts. And when my project was delivered, the week that my project was delivered, I left the situation. I already had a source of income lined up. So everything was already in place for that to happen. It's really important not to share any information about what you're doing, just move in silence. When you're ready to execute, that's going to make things go as smoothly as possible. Even if other people choose to react in the way that they would like to react, they will try and manipulate. There might be reactions. It's really important to expect those things and to know that you're going to be able to manage them. If it's like something that risks actual physical safety, that's definitely a consideration and obviously needs to be considered very carefully and planned very carefully with professionals in mind and a process to deal with that particular thing. But if we're just talking about toxic people who use emotional manipulation and emotional abuse, that sort of thing, like, this type of process I have found works really well for me. So if you're dealing with this, I'm sending you big virtual hugs. It is horrible. It's horrible that people do that and we have to talk about this, but the healing only happens when we actually leave the situation, when we leave the dynamic. And so we can't heal, we can't grow, we can't change in the situation that hurt us in the first place. So it's really important, if we're wanting to heal, if we're wanting to like recover from these things, to get out of the situation, get to a safe place, and then the healing can begin. So I really hope that this has helped someone. I love you. Bye.